Hi, I'm Dia Bassett. Welcome to Women in the Arts San Diego. Today I'd like to introduce a wonderful artist who has lived in San Diego for the past few years, coming back and forth between Los Angeles and San Diego. Her name is Artemisa Clark, and she is going to talk with us today a little bit about her artwork and what we can expect in the future. And so welcome to our August selection.
Hi, I'm Artemisa Clark. I got my BFA from NYU in 2008 in photography, and after that, I graduated right into the recession, so I moved back home to Los Angeles and just started making work. I got really obsessed, actually. I think my first really big, site-specific piece was based on the Hillside Stranglers. They were a uncle and nephew duo who killed, I think, around a dozen women and girls in Los Angeles in the 70s, and it was right around the area where I was living at the time. I was living with my mother. My mother was actually in her 20s when this was happening, so she was part of the crew that was sort of terrorized by it. And they did this really weird thing where they would kill girls, torture and kill women, right? And then they would drop their bodies off in public locations. And so when they were eventually caught, the prosecutor tried to, basically they took the jury out to this one area, and they had helicopters at all of the drop-off sites of the different bodies, and they had the helicopters shine down a light, right? So it was shown that they were actually sort of more terrorists and were using the land in this really specific way and sort of doing it to north, I think it was to northern Los Angeles, maybe northeast Los Angeles. And that was one of the first pieces where I got really invested in location in very specific area. There are two videos that are playing next to one another. I can't think of the phrase. And one is actually me in my car. It's a dash cam footage, basically. And I'm driving from where they killed and tortured women to one of the most well-known drop-off sites. And so it's just all footage of me, of Glendale, California, which is this totally it's very suburban, and the freeways and stuff. And then the other shot is me in my garage, which again was in the location that they had terrorized, so in that general area. And I basically tied myself up as they tied up their victims and tried to escape and make noise. And so it's really, there's only one light. You see me you see this area of me or something, and I'm just struggling, and you can hear people walking outside, and you can hear cars passing by, and nothing really happening and nothing changing, and it's just this continual loop. Anyway, so that I think started a lot of the trends that would sort of lead to what I'm doing now. And I just got my MFA from UCSD in visual arts. Well, I think that a lot of my work comes from it really does come from my being raised sort of Mexican, right? And very, very scared of everything, and very, very scared of ghosts. It sort of is. It's ghost hunting. I'm ghost hunting. When I do all of my work, I'm ghost hunting. Seeing if there is some sort of inherent trace that's left, right? And so with the Hillside Strangler piece in particular, I couldn't really find any traces of these girls at the sites. And so I went to the actual, because the address where they killed all of those girls, it's still a mechanic shop in Glendale. And so I went there, and that wasn't even that scary either. And so I think that maybe it is this thing of never quite capturing the ghost on film and wanting to go back to these places constantly. But it's also, the reason that I click with certain stories is because they're always stories that I see myself in, right? And what is external to us and what is part of us, part of us is in terms of identity and stuff like that. And so I think that the work that I make is always based on stories that somehow are part of that group that I'm a part of, that help me define the group that I'm a part of, right? So with the Hillside Stranglers thing, it was women who were it was everything from prostitutes to little girls, mostly though in their 20s, a lot of them women of color, and in the physical area that I was in. So that sort of brought that on, like this association with the characters in the story. I think most of my work, and the reason that I make work that is so like minimalist and really abstracts a lot of the information, is that I want to leave the audience with I guess with something unsettling, right? With something that doesn't feel like this closed story, with something that exposes these things that happened in the past, right? And that we often relegate to the past, that we often use as an example of how things have gotten better. But in telling these stories that are relegated to the past in the present, we see that they haven't, right? That they really haven't changed, that women are still killed by men, right? And it's not just, I mean, obviously a lot of people are killed, that people of color are still killed. Yeah, that femicide's still a thing. People of color still killed. Like it actually has to do with all these different intersections. And what we see, just because time passes does not mean that we really improve. Just because we pass certain, we have gay marriage, but there are still kids who are getting kicked out of their houses for being gay. It's still impossible to be a trans person almost anywhere. Like all these things are still problems. And so I think that my work tries to, I mean, again, with the things that I identify with, which is, that's the way that I feel is easiest rather for me to tell a story, is by like coming from this like personal identification. So, I mean, I think that actually my work sort of, it does have an element of unsettling the audience, right? But it also, in a way, at least with my thesis, right, which used minimalist aesthetics to deal with stories of incredible violence. I think that using aesthetics that do seem sort of boring is also really important, because I think it sort of speaks to different types of violence as well, right? It speaks to the violence of the everyday and how we've gotten used to, like, just, institutional aesthetics, institutional language or whatever, like all of that shit is racist and sexist and all of the bad, and so, but it is everything, like microaggressions and all of that. Not even microaggressions, even like the thoughts that we have in our own head about ourselves, right? Those are things that are everyday, and that's part of the violence too. The next big project that I have going on is actually going to be in Iowa City, which is where Ana Mendieta she got her MFA and MA at University of Iowa, and she lived for a very long time in Iowa, in and around sort of Iowa City. But it's going to be the 30th anniversary of her death on the September 8th, and I'm actually putting together like a small sort of janky symposium with this woman who I discovered is like, she's in her third year of the MFA program in nonfiction writing there, and she's writing a bio on Mendieta. So the two of us are gonna do something. I'm actually gonna do a tattoo piece, so I'm gonna tattoo one of the pieces that she made in graduate school. She did like a text piece, and it says there is a devil inside me. I'm gonna tattoo that on myself, and she's gonna like read a selection from her book, and we're gonna try to get somebody else to talk for free on Labor Day. It is emotional, right? It's there's blood, and it's like all this stuff that I think that as a like young Latina artist I was really into, and like really like, oh, my mom would hate if I did that, and it felt very dangerous. But then also, as I have grown with it, right, grown knowing the work, there's also so much intelligence and depth to it, and it's so simple. I mean, she is also a minimalist, right? And I like walked sort of over there, and then I came here. I was trying to go to my studio, and I was sort of over there, like going back and forth, and then I came over here, and I actually ended up almost at the edge of it, at the edge of like this whole tree area, and then I came back in exactly where I took the pictures, because the pictures all had their own geolocations and all that.
Oh,
But I don't know what happened in between taking